Hey everybody, it is Wednesday afternoon and I'm going to do a water change here on my 20-gallon open top office tank because I've been treating a Bolivian Ram in this tank for some unknown stomach ailment, I'll say. Has not been able to put on weight for the couple of months that I've had it now. And so I've been medicating the tank and hopefully it's going to be having some kind of an impact here pretty soon. But so far the Ram is still really thin, does not seem to be putting on any weight, but up until last night had been acting fairly normally. And last night I noticed that instead of watching me and being real active and swimming around the tank like it normally does, it was just sitting down in the bottom. It wasn't moving around very much. It was down here on this right-hand corner, and its coloration has gotten really dark. I don't even see it now. It was there just a moment ago. But as I walked over here to look at it, it swam away, and now I do not see it unless it's sitting back in that opposite corner. Well, I don't know where it went. It was just there a moment ago, so it's probably hiding down in the vegetation there and the roots and the darkness on the other side, which again, that in itself is just not normal. This is a very outgoing fish typically, and whenever I'm here in the room, it comes right up to this front corner thinking it's going to get fed, or at the very least just seeming interested in what I'm doing. It just seems to be like actively watching me in the same way I might watch the fish swimming around. And so its behavior is not normal, and its coloration has gotten really, really dark. And some fish darken up when they get stressed out. Other fish will lose their color and they sort of wash out. But some fish, gouramis for example, will get really dark when they're stressed out. And so that darkening, along with the unusual behavior, could very well indicate that some, we've gone to the next stage of whatever's going on with this fish. So I'm going to do a water change. I'm going to continue giving it its medication. Tonight was another night that it was supposed to be medicated, and tomorrow was going to be the water change. But I think we're going to go ahead and do the water change now. And then I'll feed it later tonight, and you got to turn the lights out when you feed, so I'll just do it as the lights are going out for the end of the night. There'll be enough ambient light in the room that the fish will still be able to see around and find the food, but apparently the food or the medication is light sensitive, so you've got to keep it in a very low light environment once you feed them the medicated food. So I'll be doing that later. In the meantime, we're just going to do a before and after water change. I don't know what kind of a difference it's going to make, but here is your before. And here's your after. So as I suspected, visually there's not a lot of difference. It just kind of looks like I topped the tank off, but there is a lot more water circulation going on, and we've adjusted the temperature, but I'll get to that in a minute. The water circulation was down pretty low again. I do have white water mold in this aquarium. It is a type of fungus that grows on plastic, and it usually affects people that have swimming pools and have all of the plastic plumbing for their filters and pumps and all that stuff. The white water mold will grow in that. And the whatever type of plastic these intake tubes are made out of, that is just the right kind of plastic for that white water mold to grow on. And I noticed that the last time I did a big water change in this tank, that when I changed the filter did not seem very clogged, and yet I was getting very limited water flow. And while it wasn't that bad this time, I kind of knew what to look for. So I did pull it apart, and there was more white water mold growing back. So I cleaned that out with really hot water. I ran a little bit of a 99% isopropyl alcohol through it. I doubt I killed it all off in the short period I let it soak with the alcohol in there, but I should have killed a lot of it off. It'll give me a good sort of starting over point. I'm not too concerned about it. I don't think it's anything that's going to bother the fish. I did have it break out in one of my quarantine tanks in the basement, and I just totally neglected it for months. And I wound up getting sheets of the water mold just sort of flowing across the surface of the tank, and I had big clumps of white stuff floating around. It was really nasty looking, but it only ever attached to and grew on the plastic of my filter. And so I'm not concerned about it like breaking out in the aquarium. As long as I do normal water changes and I tend to the filter when it needs to be and rinse the stuff out, then you're not even going to notice that it's in this tank. But I know it's in there, and it is something I need to be wary of when I do water changes. I need to get in there and make sure that plumbing is clear. As far as the Ram is concerned, I think that it sort of went into that back corner when I was shooting the opening sequence of this video, and it is still back there now. Its colors are still really dark, but I began wondering as I was doing the water change if the water temperature in this tank might not be too low for that Ram. I know there are tropical species, but not all tropical species need 80-degree water. You know, there's plenty of them that can live in 75, 76 degrees. In fact, most of them can. And most of my tanks are set up around 75 to 78 degrees. My tanks in the basement are actually much warmer than that, just because the basement itself is much warmer than that. And the tanks take on the ambient room temperature, which is around 80 degrees down there with my dehumidifier that runs constantly and all those hot fish tank lights and everything else. The basement actually stays pretty warm. We do not have any air conditioning down there. Up here, however, we do have air conditioning, and even though I keep it set between 72 and 74, when I checked this tank, even though right now the temperature is set at 74 in the house, this tank was only at 71. And that's kind of chilly for tropical fish. I know the guppies aren't going to have any problem in it, but none of my Rasbora hets are still alive. They're all gone, and I don't know why they sort of faded out so quickly. Again, I haven't actually done any research to check the temperature of these fish and what they really need to be in, but I would imagine Rasbora hets probably don't do well in the low 70s. And that's with the temperature set at 74. I can imagine at night when I set it down to 72 or possibly even 71 on some occasions. That's a rarity, but I have set it at 71 before. I would imagine that this room gets very cold. And the reason being is we keep the office closed up when we're not in here using it. It keeps the cats out of the office. And as such, when the AC comes on, all of the cold air that's blowing into this room doesn't disperse. It doesn't blow out and go down the hallway to where the thermostat is. And that would be sort of telling the thermostat a more accurate temperature of what the rest of the house is doing. So while this room is all closed up, the AC keeps blowing and blowing and blowing and blowing. And by the time the hallway finally gets to 74 degrees, this room is clearly chilled down much lower than that, because I took my thermometer and in addition to checking the tank temperature, I checked the ambient temperature of just the desk and a few odds and ends around the room, and they were all sitting right at 71.2 degrees or whatever it was. So the tank is not actually cooler than the ambient temperature in this room. It's the same temperature. This room is just cooler than I have the thermostat in the house set at. I always just assumed if I set the thermostat at 74, then my tanks would be fine. The tanks would be 74. But apparently not. This tank is actually 71, and all we're down to now is the guppies, the neons, that clown pleco, I believe, is still in there, and then we've got that Bolivian Ram that is just not doing well. So I have bumped the thermometer, or the heater in this tank up, and we're going to gradually bring the temperature of this tank up to about 76 to 78 degrees, and maybe that might be all I need to do for the well-being of this Bolivian Ram. I really wish it would come out and make an appearance so you could get a good look at how dark its coloration is. It almost looks really pretty. Its fin tips are all colored up, and its belly's got color to it. It almost looks like spawning colors. It's so dark and vibrant. But that's just unusual. I've never seen a Bolivian Ram get dark like that, and I've never seen those colors pop out, especially while it is still very sickly and thin. And again, it's just not behaving normally. It's not out and about like it usually is, and I don't even see it at this point, so I'm sure it's back there in hiding somewhere. So make sure you're subscribed. You don't want to miss any of the updates, good, bad, or indifferent. You'll be able to follow along what's going on, and if I do lose this Ram, you'll certainly find out. But so far, I have not. I've been treating it with medication for a while, and it's still hanging in there, so let's hope for the best. And hopefully we'll get several years of good, happy, healthy life out of this Bolivian Ram. So make sure you're subscribed and you won't miss any of those updates or anything else. I got a whole room full of fish tanks downstairs, plus a few other ones scattered around here upstairs. Might have to go make sure I know what's going on with the temperature in those tanks too. So thanks again for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget this is my 20-gallon open top office tank. So thanks again for watching. I'll see you real soon in the next one.